And during that, particularly in the South, the black people would be segregated. Yep, they'd be up in the balcony. But the fact is, you could still hear them.
Right.
And American Protestant church singing got influenced by black people, at least that far back in the 1740s. So that, and every country musician, every blues musician, both sides of the racial divide, sang gospel music, sang church song music together. It was their common heritage. So you can't. It's dangerous to talk about black music and white music, because in the United States they've been mixed at least since the 1740s. So it's a tradition that's really important, and it's a tradition Dylan contributes, ironically, to pull it full circle. After my book in the late 70s, when he became a Christian, he was writing gospel songs, just out of the same tradition that we've been talking about.
I mean, it is startling because it's seen in this segmented kind of linear, if I could burn out that phrase, I hate to use a hack term like that, but this whole idea that things just line up and just arrived the way the media would present it to you, or record labels, or the release of records. This has got to be so much fun to write it. Now, you are the former publicist and historian for Garcia and the Grateful Dead. Is that true, or am I got that wrong?
Oh, no, that's true. I spent 25 years as their publicist. I wrote a book called A Long Strange Trip. I started out writing a book about Jack Kerouac and the Beats, and that was called Desolate Angel. And Garcia, who Kerouac was his hero as a kid. He was hanging around North Beach. He thought of himself kind of as the youngest beatnik. He wasn't a hippie, really. He was the youngest beatnik, and never changed. And when Jerry read my Kerouac book, he said, "Why don't you write about us?" And I said, "Good idea," because by then I was a deadhead and liked the idea a lot.
Right.
So I worked on that, and that's called A Long Strange Trip. That came out 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And since then, I've been working. As I said, when I finished that, I started to say, well, all right, so you did the 50s with Kerouac, and you did the 60s with the Grateful Dead, what are you going to do now? I said, let's go further back. Let's go to the roots of all this, the roots of rock and roll. What made rock and roll, and not just R&B in the 50s. Let's go further back. And I went all the way back to about 1843. 1843, I think.
Isn't that awesome? I mean, that is, to me, that's the joy of that work, right? That work gives you joy before it gets out to the commercial side of it. You got to have that. That is special.
The most fun you can have,
right,
for me, strange, but not everybody would agree with this, but the most fun you can have is when you're starting a book and you have no clue what's going to be in it, or not really. You have an idea, a working idea, but it's just a simple idea. You got 300 pages to fill. And what you're doing is, learning. You're giving yourself a new college education, except there aren't any teachers except yourself and the books you read. There aren't any grades. You're just sort of bouncing around, seeing what makes sense and what doesn't. And that's where I started.
What are you now getting your eyes on? You starting to look for your next thing, or do you need time to have something strike you? Do you need something to occur?
Actually, I'll tell you a story. But when I finished my Kerouac book, just after I went into this a real terrible depression, which I've described many times as postpartum, as in post-birth, because you're obsessed with some subject from, in my case, 7 years with the Kerouac book. And then it's out and it's done, and it's like, your brain's going, what am I going to do now? And I got very depressed until I really started working on the Grateful Dead book. So when I was done with the Grateful Dead book, or getting near done, I said, the way to avoid postpartum depression is to stay pregnant.
Right.
Therefore,
got to get laid immediately.
Come up with a subject.
That's right. Got to get laid immediately, and you got to get knocked up right away, and to just stay right in it, man, before the stuff gets out of you. Right. You got it.
Have something in your mind.
Yeah.
You don't have to be working on it hard, but just something to think about. So I did the same with this book, and what I'm working on now, just really in the beginning stages, is a really, really weird book. That's a cultural history of San Francisco, which I might even call City of Weird, because it's always been several sandwiches shy of a full picnic in terms of the American tradition.
Dennis, you're a lot of fun to have on the show. I hope you'll come back and talk with us some more, really. Let me get this title out so that everybody knows what they'll find at your website. And the website is so easy. Just go to DennisMcNally.com, the way it sounds, DennisMcNally.com. The book is On Highway 61, Music, Race, and the Evolution of Cultural Freedom. Boy, who doesn't want your job on a Friday? All these people listening to the show are like, dude, how do I get to do that? This guy listens to rock and roll, then he analyzes culture, then he gets to write about it, and then somehow they pay him for this at the end of it. Oh my God! And you're like, I'm not telling you how I got this gig, right? When you're not letting anybody else have this gig? Are you kidding?
It's a long story, and I got very lucky. I will add just one thing, which is the book will be out in October, but you can pre-order it and read about it and get a newsletter and all this good stuff at that website. So.
Oh, rockin'! I appreciate that update. Now listen, on the Dead, you have the best collection of stuff. Like, you have all kinds of ticket stubs and sheets for the. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't mean sheets on the bed. I mean like sheets of paper.
Yeah.
With. Is that what you do? You have all that, or do you don't even think about that? It was part of your life.
I'm not a collector. I'm not much. And to be honest, all of that stuff. But I did. I was in the room, as they say.
I know you were. I get it. I get it. I know where the publicist does. Yeah.
But what I did is there's a Grateful Dead archive at the University of California at Santa Cruz Library, and I gave them all my stuff.
Wow. So that kind of got it. Yeah. Right. You know it's in the right place. It's being treated right, but you don't have to manage it. You don't have to manage it.
It's the right place.
I'm reading. I guess
share with everybody. The one thing I kept was when I just started working for the Grateful Dead, I drafted a press release, and Jerry Garcia happened to be sitting in the kitchen, which is where he sat at the Grateful Dead office, which is a house, and rebuilt or refurbished house. And he was sitting in the kitchen, and I gave it to him, to just check out. And for whatever reason, it's the only in all the years I worked for him, he never did this again. But for some reason, he went, okay, Jerry Garcia, JG, on that. And like he was a regular businessman or something.
Right, for a second, for a split second.
Just for a second, he flipped persona, and I've still got that.
Oh, you're a badass. You're a total badass, Dennis. That's it, man. That is the one. That the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame should be calling and having that.
Yeah. Someday maybe I'll give it to them.
They got to get you on one of those holograms where you tell the story of witnessing this Jerry Garcia moment where he signs it just like T. Boone Pickens. All of a sudden, he's Warren Buffett. Yeah, okay. Listen, You're terrific. Congratulations on the book. It's DennisMcNally.com, and you can pre-order on Highway 61. And, of course, you can get all his books there on the Grateful Dead. And what a great time with you. I can't wait till you're back on the show, man.
Now, I don't know, but I've been told if the horse don't pull, you got to carry the load.
Go to DennisMcNally.com. You can pre-order the new book on Highway 61, and you can get the books you've missed that you will love to read, because it's reading season.
One way or another. One way or another. One way or another. It's down the end to show. Come on, everybody, listen to the Intel Show. You may not like what he has to say, but he's gonna say it anyway.
30 minutes till Pat Horgan. Stand by.
Come on, everybody, Intel Show. He's the baddest cat around. He got the sharpest tongue.